You're watching a production of South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Hello and welcome to Election 2014, brought to you by South Dakota Public Broadcasting, AARP South Dakota, and the South Dakota Newspaper Association. We have teamed up to bring you South Dakota's gubernatorial debate. I'm Stephanie Rissler, tonight's moderator. Here are the rules and the instructions. Each candidate will have a 1-minute opening statement. Each candidate will have the opportunity for a 1-minute closing statement at the end of the debate. The questions have been solicited from the Friends of South Dakota Public Broadcasting, members of AARP South Dakota, and members of the South Dakota Newspaper Association. I will ask the questions on behalf of all three partners. We do ask that each candidate limit their answers to 90 seconds or less. Each candidate will have 30 seconds for a rebuttal should they feel they need it, and each candidate will have equal opportunity to respond to all questions. Now, let's meet our candidates. Republican candidate, Governor Dennis Daugaard. Independent candidate, Michael J. Myers. Democratic candidate, State Representative Susan Wismer. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for participating in tonight's debate. Names were drawn to determine the order of our opening statement. That order will be Governor Dennis Daugaard, then Michael Myers, followed by Representative Susan Wismer. Governor Daugaard, you have 1 minute, sir. You can begin.
Thank you, Susan. 4 years ago, I came asking for a job, and you gave me a big one. A lot has changed since then. My family's grown. I've added a daughter-in-law and 3 new grandkids, and 1 grandchild on the way. But a lot more has changed. Together, we balanced the budget without using gimmicks or raising taxes. We stood up to record flooding on the Missouri River. We initiated reform of our criminal justice system to make the public safer, to hold offenders accountable, and to save money. And we added thousands of jobs, recovering to a new post-recession high. Along the way, we added new programs for our young people, too, with programs at our high schools and our technical schools and our public universities. A lot has changed, but there's still more we can do, and that's why I'm asking for your support this November. I'd be honored to serve as your governor again.
All right, thank you very much. Michael, you two have 1 minute to speak to our voters. Go ahead, sir.
I'm Mike Myers, independent candidate for governor, and when I go into office, I'm going to be the oldest governor in the United States. But I'm not for sale. And I put together my wife and family. My wife passed away 7 years ago. I got a background, former CEO of Mayo St. Mary's Hospital, 1,000 beds, taught for 26 years, and I believe it's time. It's time to push back and modify a power structure in Pierre that's been there too long. Everybody needs a platform. I've got 5 planks, real quick. Plank 1. Not for sale. I'm not a career politician, and I'll be fighting state corruption. Plank 2, education, parent-teacher control and funding. Plank 3, health insurance cooperative, Mayo standards. Plank 4, jobs, a living wage, agriculture, industrial hemp. And finally, plank 5, I'm aligned with the Cowboy Indian Alliance regarding the Keystone Pipeline and the Clean Water Alliance out there opposing the uranium mining.
Thank you very much. Representative Susan Wismer, you now may visit with our voters of South Dakota.
Thank you. Thank you to South Dakota Public Broadcasting and to the viewers for tuning in tonight. I'm running for governor for the people of South Dakota that aren't being represented in Pierre today. I'm running because I believe in a healthy, open discussion. You know, just like competition is good for business, a competition of ideas would be good for state government. And we haven't had that in South Dakota for a long time. I'm running because this administration has failed to recognize the real challenges that this state faces. And those challenges won't be addressed until I'm governor. You know, politics has become a little like football. We cheer for our favorite team no matter how well they're playing. But electing a governor is not about team loyalty. It's about choosing the leader with the right priorities. So I challenge our viewers tonight. Listen for the differences between the candidates and vote for the one who understands the challenges we face in South Dakota. Thank you.
All right, thanks to all three of you. It is now time for the question and answer portion of tonight's debate. Names were drawn to determine the order. The first round will go as follows. Mike Myers will go first, then Representative Susan Wismer, followed by Governor Daugaard. We will then rotate that order for each new question. Michael, here is your question first. It's about education. South Dakota ranks in the bottom for teacher pay and is dwarfed by all neighboring states. Could you concisely answer how you plan to improve South Dakota's education system for teachers? And this comes from Travis in Rapid City.
It comes down to parent-teacher control. My daughter Ann worked as a teacher associate up in Centerville. Drove the bus, monitored the halls, broke up fights in the playground, did it all. And the mandates that come down from Common Core and so on dictate a different kind of and costly way to teach. We need better funding, we need to attract teachers, and we ought to be just a little bit ashamed of ourselves for being down there where we are on paying some of the most important people that will affect the lives of our children and tomorrow's generation.
All right, thank you very much. Representative Wismer, you'll go next. Again, it's Travis from Rapid City who sends this in. It's about education. Could you concisely answer how you plan to improve South Dakota's education system for teachers?
It's about your priorities reflecting what you say to the voters when you run for election. 4 years ago, this governor was elected saying, there is no budget crisis, and I value education. But when he got to the Capitol, he said, whoops, we've got a problem here, folks. We need to cut the budget, and everybody's going to share in the pain. I'm even going to cut my salary, $15,000. Education, your share is $50 million. And then, when we found that we had drastically overreacted to the situation and came back the next year, education and healthcare as well did receive some funds back, but they received a much smaller percentage back than what we had taken away from them in the first place. I'm a member of the Legislative Planning Committee that met this summer and heard superintendents come and talk about the disaster that we've created in South Dakota for our local schools. Even superintendents from large schools came and said, we've robbed all the good teachers we can find from our small schools. The pipeline is empty. The free market works, and we shouldn't be surprised that it's worked in South Dakota. The first answer to correcting the problem is a change in the direction from the governor's office, a change in priorities, and a respect for education that we do not see coming now from the Capitol. Thank you.
All right, Governor Daugaard, same question. Could you concisely answer how you plan to improve South Dakota's education system for teachers?
Education is our #1 priority in Pierre. Every year we spend the largest share of our general fund appropriation on education before any other topic. When we build the budget, almost half of the budget is spent on education. When we begin the budget process, we first fund an inflationary increase for education, and then after funding the other necessary things, if there's money left over, it also goes to education. Now, the National Education Association says we're 51st in pay for teachers. That same study also shows we're 39th in revenue per student. And the difference between 51st and 39th is how that money is spent at the local level. Local school boards determine how teachers are paid, not the state government. Now, we have a workforce shortage for teachers, just as we have for engineers, for accountants, IT professionals, and others. It's difficult for employers to hire in certain categories of occupations. Some people say the state gives lip service to education. That's not true. I don't call spending the last 3 years increasing $40 million to education and one-time dollars of $30 million more lip service. The bottom line is you can't spend money you don't have. I'm happy to spend more money on education if it's available, and I'm proud of the investments we've made in education and looking forward to doing more.
All right, we do have time for rebuttals if you feel that you need it. Mike, you can begin if you have 30 seconds. If you'd
rebuttal, but you know, I've been in the business of selling JD degrees. Looking out those students who walk out there with $40,000, $50,000, $70,000 of non-dischargeable debt. And we now find that people at the Social Security level are engaged in the largest default in education. So I think this education investment, we need to make sure that when we invest that kind of money in education, that there's an opportunity in the market for a return.
Representative Wismer, would you like your 30 seconds?
Yes, please. Today, we have millions more dollars in the bank than we did when this governor took office. If we were truly concerned about education, we would prioritize education over money in the bank. The governor started this distracting statistic about 39th place at Dakota Fest, when actually South Dakota is in very last place by far for the share of money that the state puts into education. It's only because of the local effort that it gets above there.
All right, Governor Daugaard, you too have 30 seconds.
It's important to distinguish between the source of money and the availability of money. The important thing is how much revenue is available to students, not where does it come from. And in South Dakota, we are 39th in revenue per student. Again, it's depending upon where the revenue is spent at the local level. Those are decisions that are locally made and should be locally made. To the extent that the state has dollars available, I am supportive of increasing investment in education, but I won't spend money we don't have.
We will move on to the next question. Representative Wismer, you'll go first. The question is on health care. With the number of baby boomers across South Dakota reaching senior citizen status, what efforts need to be done at the state level to ensure our health care system is capable of handling the increase in health care needs for our baby boomers, especially in our rural areas of South Dakota? Again, Representative Wismer, you'll go first, and your 90 seconds starts now.
Thank you. Well, the first thing we could do is expand Medicaid, because in not expanding Medicaid, we are passing on $5 million a week investment in our in-state health care institutions. I'll stay away from the rest of the Medicaid expansion discussion, assuming that we'll talk about that later. But not expanding Medicaid is having severe effects on the health of all of our institutions, because they weren't, when the Affordable Care Act was passed, it was passed with the assumption that there would be far fewer patients that didn't have insurance, that there would be a far lesser degree of uncompensated care. But because we do still have 48,000 non-covered residents, our hospitals still have the same degree of non-compensated care that they did before the Affordable Care Act came into place. And so therefore the health of our rural institutions is threatened because of their high bad debt levels. Also, in regards to providers for our elderly, our state needs to continue its investments in our medical school here in Vermilion, and we have been able to increase the slots and also to increase the residencies that are available here in South Dakota, because we need to make sure that the providers that we train here, we are able to sustain here in the state.
All right, thank you. Governor Daugaard, you'll get to go next. Again, I'll ask the question. With the number of baby boomers across the state reaching senior citizen status, what efforts need to be done at our state level to make sure the healthcare system is capable of handling the increase in healthcare needs for the baby boomers, especially in rural areas of South Dakota? Go ahead.
Well, South Dakota has a very good healthcare system, especially in our larger cities. The problem that we face is the availability, the access to health care in our rural areas, and that's a problem that I've tackled head on. I appointed a primary care task force the first year I was in office to study what we can do to improve access to health care in our rural areas, and a number of steps have already been taken. First, we expanded the medical school. More doctors produced in South Dakota improves the likelihood that more doctors will stay in South Dakota, and some of them will stay in rural areas. We also expanded the physician's assistant program. We had 10 slots for in-state students and 10 slots for out-of-state students. We converted that to 5 states for out-of-state and 20 slots for in-state students. We also created payments for clinical experiences for mid-level practitioners like physician's assistants and nurse practitioners. And then particularizing our attractions to the rural area, we created several programs to give medical professionals experience in rural areas like the farm program and the rehabs program that get students into the area, into the small towns in South Dakota, and give them experience in those clinical areas. Finally, we added dollars for recruiting incentives, so healthcare facilities can incent medical professionals to come to their area, either through giving them a payment when they come or promising them to reimburse their tuition if they stay for a period of time in the rural area. I'm proud that we've done a lot to improve access in rural areas.
All right, thank you. Mike, would you like me to repeat the question, or are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
You have 90 seconds. Go ahead, sir.
Medicine has become an epidemic. Unimpeded, it's going to drive us into social, political, and financial bankruptcy. And I put together some of these systems. And with regard to the baby boomers, I hosted 527 elder law forum radio programs over WNAX. And I did the senior legal helpline. This is an area that needs to be controlled, needs to be regulated, and by the way, we've got these concentrated, vertically integrated systems. And I often ask, where's Teddy Roosevelt when we need him? I'll take a look at the not-for-profit behavior of these systems where they advertise by the millions of dollars, pay their executives and doctors millions of dollars, and overtreat. Because remember, access saves, but access kills. And my model will be the establishment of a healthcare cooperative, where we, the members, own the insurance mechanism, and I have a lot of ideas on how to lower our premiums up to maybe 30%. We've got to get our hands around a system that's virtually out of control.
Thank you. We do have time for rebuttals on this issue. Representative Wismer, you would go first if you'd like.
Sure. You know, an additional element of rural health care is definitely our nursing homes. And our nursing homes have suffered 6-figure operating losses during this governor's term in office. We have lost a few nursing homes during his term. I was just to a fundraiser in a local community in my legislative district that was changing the way it was organized so that it could hopefully survive for a few more years and be able to provide the care to its local residents. The core services in our local communities are in danger of disappearing because of the policies of this administration.
All right, we'll move on. Governor Daugaard, you too have time for rebuttal.
Yes, thank you. In the area of nursing homes, it's important to know the facts. During the Mickelson administration, a moratorium was placed on the number of nursing home beds in South Dakota. Over the years, as different levels of care have have been created, assisted living, home health care. The number of people seeking care in nursing homes has gone down. We aren't even at the number of the moratorium. And it's true that some population has shifted to larger metropolitan areas, and smaller nursing home areas, rural nursing home areas are having more difficulty. That's the nature of the population shift, not a consequence of the way Medicaid is supported in these nursing homes.
Mike, you too have 30 seconds if you would like to rebuttal.
Well, I endorse the expansion of Medicaid, but if I was with Governor Daugaard looking for a waiver, I want priority given to what you're talking about. Nursing homes, oh, we all get old, and the grain of America in South Dakota is a serious problem. I want Medicaid expanded, I want a waiver, I want priority given to senior centers.
All right, we're going to move on to the next question. Governor Daugaard, you will go first this time, and this one is on Medicaid. Here is the question. There are a lot of people between 50 and 64 who've worked their whole lives that need medical insurance and don't qualify for insurance through the exchanges. The decision to not expand Medicaid was made during this past legislative session. Even though some lawmakers were not in favor of the decision, as governor, what will you do to make sure those individuals who don't qualify for insurance or need assistance get the help that they need? This was sent to us by Max, and he is a member of AARP.
Well, thank you for the question. Medicaid is certainly a very important program in South Dakota. Today we have roughly 116,000 South Dakotans who today are on Medicaid. These are children mostly, some adults with disabilities, and some people who have low income, frail elderly adults. And Medicaid's a good program, but I worry about the federal cost of expanding Medicaid. We've already got 2 entitlement programs, Social Security and Medicare, which are on track for bankruptcy, and nothing seems to be done about that. I also worry about the state cost. If we expanded Medicaid next year, it would cost $2 million. Then 2 years later, $10 million, then $20 million, then $26 million, then $36 million. And those are dollars that can't be spent on education or other human needs. And what about the 48,000 folks who would qualify for Medicaid if there was an expansion? Nearly half of them today can either have private insurance already or can get subsidized insurance on the federal health care exchange for as little as 2% of their income. All that being said, it's important to distinguish between insurance, Medicaid insurance availability, and access. And I talked in the last question about expanding access to health care. I'm proud of the progress we've made in access, and I'll work hard to continue to improve access in the years ahead.
All right, thank you, Governor. Mike, you will go next. Again, the question is from Max. He's with AARP, and he asks, as governor, what will you do to make sure those individuals who do not qualify for insurance or need assistance get the help that they need? And we're talking about Medicaid.
Mom and Dad and Grandpa spend money on us. We need $3 or $4 million more. It's time. We're going to support those people at that part of their life because we all may be there. So we're going to always talk. When I taught elder law, I said, you know who's going to be in the front row of heaven when we get up there? All those minimum wage assistants that came in and changed Mom and Dad's diaper. I'm going to spend money. I'm going to spend money on the people that need it, and I had case after case after case of people whose life savings have been spent because Dad had a stroke and they went to a nursing home. Let's spend money on the kids, and let's spend money on us old folks.
All right, thank you, Mike. Representative Wismer, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you.
Go ahead.
This question, I think I'll address the access question first. The governor mentioned that we are expanding access. However, these 48,000 people do not have access to preventive care, and that's the most efficient kind of care. They only have access to emergency rooms, and that is the most inefficient type of care. So if we did expand Medicaid, we would take a step toward allowing our healthcare system to provide services in a more efficient manner. Regarding the state cost, the economic studies have shown that the cost to the state is essentially nothing. The economic return of having $272 million a year extra into our economy would far outweigh and multiply, as economic multipliers do, such that the state cost would be essentially nothing. As far as the federal cost and when the state cost would step up, I think we're seriously overstating what the state cost would be. The way the law is written now, it would be 10 years before the state would take an appreciable share of this cost. And furthermore, in all of the medical studies, because there were several Medicaid expansions task forces in the last couple of years, and it was taken for granted that if and when we did expand Medicaid, we would have a provision that would hold the state harmless.
It is now time, if we'd like to go back and have a rebuttal, we can do that, Governor. We'd start with you if you'd like. You have 30 seconds.
Yes, I'd like the rebuttal. Well, first of all, Representative Wismer stated that the folks who would be covered by a Medicaid expansion have only access to emergency care, and that's not true. Nearly half, as I said earlier, nearly half today have private insurance or can get subsidized health insurance for as little as 2% of their income. Many of those could get that subsidy. They also have the ability to gain the subsidized insurance for working as little as 30 hours a week at the minimum wage. They also have opportunity to work through federal qualified health care agencies and get health care on a sliding scale. So there is access, and it's more than just emergency care.
All right, that is time. Michael, you too have 30 seconds if you would like.
Oh, let's make sure that Medicaid money is spent in the right location. And we can spend $1 million on those late life people at Medicaid level. I want to shift that and give priority again to the nursing homes and to the elderly.
Representative, you two have 30 seconds.
Regarding the half of the population that technically does have access, the state is doing its darndest to make a self-fulfilling prophecy of the failure of the Affordable Care Act by not promoting to the people who are eligible the fact that they are eligible for the health care exchanges. If we expanded Medicaid, we would help make many more people productive members of this society, because we would be treating the chronic conditions that keep them out of the workforce. We take a lot of federal money in this state, and we don't have any problem when it goes to veterans or roads or ag subsidies. But the fact that we refuse to take this $300 million so far, I find immoral.
All right, thanks to all three of you. We're going to move on now. Michael, you will answer first. We're going to talk about economic development. Here's the question. Improving economic development on a statewide scale is an issue many candidates have addressed is important for South Dakota. Could you provide specific plans you hope to implement that will improve South Dakota, even in our most rural areas of the state?
Eleanor Roosevelt said, "Happiness is not a goal. It's a byproduct." And I would suggest that economic development is a byproduct of the energy and the adventures that we can bring to all of our communities. And of course, I'm out there doing something that's kind of radical. I have an opportunity to meet with a few lawyers and other people, and they said, don't even use the word, Mike. The word is H-E-M-P, hemp. Agricultural and industrial hemp. 17 states have done this. North Dakota's done this. The Farm Bureau wants it. We're sitting on top of $1 billion industry, particularly on the reservations. that we refuse to take advantage of because of the lobbying influence of big oil, lumber, cotton growers.
All right, thank you for your answer. Representative Wismer, you'll go next. Again, the question, provide specific plans you hope to implement that will improve economic development, even in our most rural parts of South Dakota.
The voters turned down this governor's first economic development program a few years ago at the polls. And when the legislature came back to Pierre, I think that we did a very good job of coming together on a bipartisan basis with a compromise proposal that included several integral areas to economic development. Besides the refunds of some of the extra taxes that economic developers find in South Dakota, we also included 4 very important elements. Number 1, we included a housing provision so that particularly in our small communities that perhaps don't have an up-to-date housing stock, we could address those issues. We also included a provision so that English as a second language got some extra boosting in the education formula. We also included provisions that helped small communities address the infrastructure needs, roads and water and sewer projects that come with new development. And finally, we addressed a need that small communities have to address to build infrastructure, personnel, and intellectual capability to address the economic development. But this governor, this past year, tore apart the funding mechanism for that economic development package, and he put it at risk for the next several years. Thank you.
Governor, you too can talk about economic development. The question, provide specific plans you hope to implement that will improve economic development, even in our most rural parts of South Dakota.
Thank you, Stephanie. I have to laugh at Susan Wismer's assertion that I tore apart the funding. When Senate Bill 235 passed, the belief was that it would generate about $7 million a year into that program. What I did last year was pre-fund with $30 million that program. So if that's tearing apart the funding, I'd love to have people tear apart funding for me all day long. South Dakota has great success in economic development over the last 4 years, from Builder's Choice in Vermilion to Pipeline Plastics in Belfouche to Marmon Energy in Brandon. Employers have added new locations with new jobs in South Dakota all over the state. The more common situation, though, is existing employers that are growing. MSG Manufacturing in Parkston added new workers this year. Look at Trail King in Mitchell, Bell Brands in Brookings, and 3M announced their second expansion in 4 years. We've had tremendous growth for 3 reasons. 1, we have a low cost and low tax environment. 2, we have reasonable regulations. And 3, we have a great workforce. And I've worked hard to strengthen those 3 factors. I've kept taxes low. I've repealed hundreds of unnecessary regulations, and I've added programs in welding and machining and other areas, scholarship dollars for high demand, high tech jobs. I'm proud of the economic development successes South Dakota has seen. We've regained all the jobs we lost during the recession and added 10,000 more. If that's not economic development success, I don't know what is.
We are at the rebuttal portion of this issue on economic development. Mike, if you would like, you have 30 seconds.
Well, let's recognize we live in a different world. It's one of information technology. And we no longer can expect big companies to come into these small towns. So we need to optimize the ability. I taught at the law school. Mike, we can't have clinics because we're too small. Oh, we could bring those in. So information technology, I believe, is an area that we can bring the quality of life, incredible quality of life in these small towns. I live in Centerville, quiet, clean. We don't lock our doors. I leave the keys in the car. It's a good life. But I think information technology is one way we can kind of keep some vitality in these small communities.
All right, thank you. Representative Wismer, 30 seconds.
As I was referring to the funding mechanism for economic development, my reference was to it's a battle between the executive and the legislative branch. And it's a small point, as all of the citizens of the state are concerned probably, but it's very important to the mechanism and the continuing confidence that we can have in having a balanced approach to economic development. And that has been threatened by the changes made to the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Governor Daugaard, you too have 30 seconds.
No, I have no rebuttal.
All right, we will move on. This next question, we will begin with Representative Susan Wismer, and we are going to talk about EB5. This past year and a half has unveiled some serious problems with South Dakota's EB5 program, which is a federal program designed to improve rural economic development. EB5 could be considered one of our state's bigger political scandals. The issue could even be ongoing after the governor's race. If you should win the job as South Dakota Governor, how will you work to ensure incidents like what has happened with the EB5 program in South Dakota do not happen again? Representative Wismer, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. I think the major takeaway for the state from this episode ought to be that it's an example of the consequences of what happens when we allow state government to be so completely in the control of one party for 40 years, not just legislative but executive as well. And having a Democrat in the governor's chair would solve that problem. What I see as I tear apart or try to understand all the pieces of this puzzle is that the lines between public and private have become so blurred over the last 40 years in peer that it's difficult for those involved to tell the difference between. As a member of Government Operations and Audit Committee, from the beginning I was asking, let's not just talk about what it was that this governor wanted to talk about, which was the topics of the 3 audits that he prescribed. Instead, I asked that we talk about the EB5 program, because I knew that that's where, as a resident of the northeastern part of the state, I knew that there were bad things happening and that we were conducting business in the good name of the state of South Dakota, and there were bad actors involved, and that needed to stop. So that's what I would, the solution is balance in state government.
All right, Governor Daugaard, you will go next. Again, the question, if you should win the job as South Dakota Governor, how will you work to ensure incidents like what happened with the EB5 program in our state don't happen again?
Well, EB5 is not a program my administration has emphasized. But when I learned the U.S. Attorney was investigating this issue, I asked our state's Attorney General to undertake a separate investigation. If there was any wrongdoing, I wanted to know about it. And when the Attorney General's investigation became available to me, I immediately made it public so everyone could see what was in it. Because that report indicated the potential for weakness in our internal controls in the Office of Economic Development, I asked for 3 separate audits. I asked for 2 audits by separate CPA firms, and I asked for an audit by the Department of Legislative Audit, which is controlled by the legislature, not by the governor. And when those audits became available, I made them public. I have, at every turn, offered the legislature and the public all the information I have and answered every question I can. I think to look at the audits and identify the ways in which we can strengthen our internal controls is exactly the kind of thing that you want to do to avoid recurrence of any wrongdoing. There's no one in my administration that's the target of any investigation. I believe that criminal prosecutions are the province of our state's Attorney General and our U.S. Attorney, and I invite those who claim there are bad actors to come forth with their names and identify them. And if they are truly worthy of indictment, then the system is there to indict them.
Mike, you are next. If you should win the job as South Dakota Governor, how will you work to ensure incidents like what happened with the EB-5 program in South Dakota?
Well, the potential bad actors could be Governor Daugaard and Governor Rounds and Mr. Bolin. And as I said previously, when I'm governor, I'm going to appoint a special independent attorney, and we'll send out those invitations. I want Governor Daugaard, and I want Mr. Bolin, and I want Governor Rounds to come in with that Bible under oath. We've had no testimony under oath, and to walk off and with $70 million, where is it at? And that's why I believe I gave testimony in front of her committee. Myers, I'm going to rule you out of order. Why? Because I was pushing them to issue subpoenas, and let's get to the bottom of it. And when I'm governor, we'll try and accomplish that.
It is time, if we would like, we've got some time for rebuttals. Representative Wismer, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. I think it is important for the citizens of South Dakota to know that this governor did learn about litigation regarding Yote Bolin and the activities that he had taken in the separate signing of the SDRC Inc. contract. He learned, his office was apprised of that in February of '09. Also, I think it's important to wonder why this administration did not hire Richard Benda. Why was that? And finally, it's important for people to know that this administration did not stop the EB-5 activity with Yote Bolin until just a year ago.
Governor Daugaard, you too have time for rebuttal.
Well, I think it's important to remind the viewers that I was not in office in February '09. I was not the governor. I was the lieutenant governor, and under our state constitution, the lieutenant governor performs the duties assigned to him by the governor, and this was not in any way my assignment. And so to suggest that I had some knowledge is really stretching the truth a bit.
And Michael, you too have 30 seconds.
No, nothing more than I believe that EB-5 is South Dakota's Watergate. And we'll probably find that out if I'm governor.
We are going to move on to the next round of questions. Governor Daugaard, you will go first. We're going to talk about natural disasters. South Dakota has dealt with its share of natural disasters that have taken a toll on our citizens mentally and financially. The state cannot always depend on the federal government to provide assistance after a disaster. What can be done at the state level to provide more security should a future natural disaster hit?
Well, I'm proud of the record that our administration has created during my administration. Just 6 months into office, we had record flooding on the Missouri River. I called out the National Guard, and we had the largest activation of the National Guard in our state's history in response to a natural disaster. We scrambled and built levees on both sides of the Missouri River in northern communities near Lake Oahe and southern communities downstream of Gavin's Point Dam. In the years that follows, we responded to record numbers of wildfires in the Black Hills. We responded to ice storms, and this summer flooding again on the Sioux River, and then tornado in Wessington Springs. In every instance, I've acted promptly and called out the National Guard to provide aid when aid was needed. In our system, local governments are the first responders, and the state is always at the ready to provide help when needed, and we come in and assertively offer ideas about suggestions of help that can be provided. Financially, we have always been careful to arrange for repairs or advanced defenses in ways that qualify for FEMA reimbursement where available. And I think we have a good record. In one case, we were able to get individual assistance in the Missouri River flooding by appealing the decision against it, and we were successful in that appeal. So I think we've done a good job to provide financial assistance where we could.
All right, we'll move on. Mike, you get to go next. And again, the question, what can be done at the state level to provide more security in the event we have a natural disaster in the future?
We need to recognize that water, storms, snow. They do not recognize and respect county lines. And the counties struggle and fight and compete over who's going to bear the cost of that damage. I believe Governor Daugaard's done this. We got to bring these people together and see if there's a way to share in the cost of responding to Mother Nature.
All right, thank you, sir. Representative Wismer, you'll get to go last on this question. What can be done at the state level to provide more security should a future natural disaster hit South Dakota?
As a member of Appropriations Committee, I'm quite familiar with the dollars that have gone to assist in recovering from disasters, all the different types that the governor mentioned, the wildfires, the floods. I think that really the average person would be surprised how much of those dollars do come from the federal government. And I think it's incumbent upon us to be sure that we spend those as wisely as possible. I believe I just read this week that the rural electrics are using some federal money, disaster money that they received, to bury power lines. And I think we definitely need to do that because we have incurred millions and millions of dollars of damage to storms in the last few years. And one way to finally put an end to those losses is to get those power lines underground. I think as far as the flooding is concerned, you know, the concern there was, did we have appropriate communications with the Army Corps of Engineers? As a member of an international legislators forum, I have had the opportunity to listen to the Corps of Engineers, and I think they definitely are planning on changing some of their communication methods to make sure that what happened that year here on the Missouri River doesn't happen again. You know, really, Homeland Security dollars are what keep us going in South Dakota as far as preparing us for the next disaster.
Time. There is the opportunity for a rebuttal. Governor, would you like 30 seconds?
I don't have any rebuttal.
Mike?
Just one observation. I often told my students, we South Dakotans don't like big government. We like other people's big government. And my friend Gretchen said if South Dakota had to stand on its own financial feet, it would look like Cuba. So we're going to take advantage of all those federal dollars. I'm sure any one of us, as governor, will do exactly that, and will continue to do that.
Representative, do you need any rebuttal time? We are getting close to the end. We do have time for one additional bonus question. You each will have 1 minute to respond. There is no time for a rebuttal. The question has to do with transparency. Michael, you will go first. Here is your question. What is one concrete thing you would do or champion in the next 4 years, if elected, to make South Dakota government more transparent? You have 1 minute.
The People's Forum. I did the Elder Law Forum. We're going to have a forum just like the Washington Journal. And they can call in and they can, independent, Democrat, Republican, and they can call in and say, Mr. Myers, you're the most wonderful governor we ever ran into. With your background and experience, we admire everything you've done. Or they can call in and say, how could we ever have elected a person like you? I want open dialogue. I want People's Forum, and I'm identified as a populist, and I'm going to be a populist in my government style.
All right, thank you. Representative Wismer, you'll go next. Again, if elected, what will you do to make South Dakota government more transparent?
You know, as a Democratic legislator, it's often quite frustrating during the legislative session, as it seems all decisions are made behind closed doors. We tell our counties and our schools and our cities that they need to conduct all of their business out in the open. But in Pierre, any decision of consequence is made in the closed governor's conference room, in the closed Republican caucus, or in the closed pre-committee committee meetings where noses are counted and permission is parceled out to vote. As in the manner that will carry out the majority's agenda. The only way that we can change that is by putting another party in control of the governor's office. They can gerrymander the whole state as much as they want, but they can't gerrymander the state as a whole. And South Dakota could have some balance if we would put a Democrat into the governor's chair.
Governor Daugaard, your turn for the question. What's one concrete thing you would do or champion, if elected, to make South Dakota government more transparent?
Well, first let me offer some examples of ways which I have already made South Dakota government more transparent. I convened the Open Government Task Force with the the Newspaper Association and others, and through that work we identified improvement to the open meetings laws and the open records laws, and we urged some of that through the legislature. Some of the legislature would not support them, but we came back and got some more legislative changes to improve that. We've also improved the rulemaking website so people can understand as rules are being created through the rulemaking process, they can follow it more easily, and I've gotten good praise for that effort. We've posted all our economic development awards on our website. That wasn't being done before. We've listed the Governor's Hunt, the Buffalo Roundup invitees. A concrete thing that I would do in the future, and we're already working on it, is improving the access that citizens have to boards and commissions, minutes and processes, making a centralized website where people can, through that portal, find access to those over 100 boards and commissions in South Dakota. That's concrete.
All right, thanks to all three of you. It is now time for the closing comments. That's all the time we have for the question and answer part of this debate. Candidates will share their closing thoughts with us tonight. Each candidate will have 1 minute. We did draw names to determine the order in which they would go, and it will be Representative Susan Wismer first, followed by Governor Dennis Daugaard, and then Mike Myers will have the final words tonight. So Representative Wismer, this is your opportunity to share your final thoughts with our South Dakota viewers.
Thank you again to SDPB and my fellow candidates and the viewers. You know, our ancestors gave us a well-run, a well-educated citizenry and strong communities and infrastructure. But we're not doing our part. We're not being good stewards of what our ancestors gave us. We're allowing our frustration with the federal government and extremist partisan rhetoric affect our judgment about state issues. And our communities are paying the price for that every day in our starving schools, in our nearly bankrupt nursing homes, and our crumbling roads and bridges. 4 years from now, if we continue on the path we're on, what will we have done to our children's chances for success? I'm tired of being told it could be worse, when our future could be so much better. We're better than that here in South Dakota, and we should expect more than that from our leaders. As governor, I would lead to that higher ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Governor, you now have 1 minute to visit with the voters of South Dakota.
Thank you. Across the country, people are recognizing that good things are happening in South Dakota. Barron's called us the best-run state in America. CNBC called us the #1 state for business. Our taxes are among the lowest in the nation. In a political year, it's sometimes hard to remember the good news, but it's true. Our unemployment rate is second lowest in the nation. Our student test scores are above the national average. We balanced our budget. Our communities are among the safest in the nation, and our population and economy are growing faster than the nation. I know that government doesn't deserve credit for most of this, but I've worked hard to help South Dakota families and businesses achieve success. I'd be grateful for the opportunity to serve 4 more years and continue to build on those successes. I'd be honored to serve as your governor again.
All right, thank you. And Mike, you too have the opportunity to take 1 minute to share your thoughts with voters.
Well, there's something going on out there. A level of anxiety and underlying anger among the people that I meet and talk with. And I really believe that we need to respond to that anger and respond to that anxiety. And I believe I'm uniquely qualified to do that because, again, I won't be looking for a second term. I have the background. Health care is my priority. Elder law is my priority. When they walk in that ballot box for the first time in decades, Democrat, Republican, and we know that most people, this is a Republican state. It's a tough run for Susan. What about doing something different and challenging and let Myers go in there and not rage against the machine, but maybe put some new spark plugs in it?
Thank you, sir. And that is all the time we have. I'd like to thank the candidates for joining us. Republican candidate Governor Dennis Daugaard, Independent candidate Michael Myers, Democratic candidate State Representative Susan Wismer. If you missed part of tonight's broadcast, you can listen to the audio version of the debate tomorrow on SDPB Radio's midday program. That's at noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain. Tonight's televised debate is archived in its entirety on our website at sdpb.org. Be sure to join us next Thursday as we bring you the United States House of Representatives debate. That will be live October 16th at 8 p.m. Central, 7 Mountain. Republican candidate Kristi Noem and Democratic candidate Karina Robinson will tackle the issues important to South Dakota. Until then, on behalf of all of us with South Dakota Public Broadcasting, AARP South Dakota, and the South Dakota Newspaper Association, I'm Stephanie Rissler. We thank you for joining us. Good night.
Your membership keeps public broadcasting free for everyone. With help from the South Dakota Cultural Heritage Center in Pierre offers adventures and learning opportunities for all visitors through interactive exhibits, educational programs, and unique events, also featuring the South Dakota State Archives. History.sd.gov.
The legacy of the instrument, I think of it quite a bit. It's one of the beautiful things about it. We use simple materials to build instruments that will last for generations.
Get a taste of South Dakota. Everything from garden fresh veggies to great barbecue. Oh, and don't miss the Poppin' Fresh SD PB&J sandwich topped with sun butter.
Now, let's meet our candidates. Republican candidate Governor Dennis Daugaard. Independent candidate Michael J. Myers. Democratic candidate, State Representative Susan Wismer. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for participating in tonight's debate. Names were drawn to determine the order of our opening statement. That order will be Governor Dennis Daugaard, then Michael Myers, followed by Representative Susan Wismer. Governor Daugaard, you have 1 minute, sir. You can begin.
Thank you, Susan. 4 years ago, I came asking for a job, and you gave me a big one. A lot has changed since then. My family's grown. I've added a daughter-in-law and 3 new grandkids and 1 grandchild on the way. But a lot more has changed. Together, we balanced the budget without using gimmicks or raising taxes. We stood up to record flooding on the Missouri River. We initiated reform of our criminal justice system to make the public safer, to hold offenders accountable, and to save money. And we added thousands of jobs, recovering to a new post-recession high. Along the way, we added new programs for our young people, too, with programs at our high schools and our technical schools and our public universities. A lot has changed, but there's still more we can do, and that's why I'm asking for your support this November.
Clean Water Alliance out there opposing the uranium mining.
Thank you very much. Representative Susan Wismer, you now may visit with our voters of South Dakota.
Thank you. Thank you to South Dakota Public Broadcasting and to the viewers for tuning in tonight. I'm running for governor for the people of South Dakota that aren't being represented in Pierre today. I'm running because I believe in a healthy, open discussion. You know, just like competition is good for business, a competition of ideas would be good for state government. And we haven't had that in South Dakota for a long time. I'm running because this administration has failed to recognize the real challenges that this state faces. And those challenges won't be addressed until I'm governor. You know, politics has become a little like football. We cheer for our favorite team no matter how well they're playing. But electing a governor is not about team loyalty. It's about choosing the leader with the right priorities. So I challenge our viewers tonight. Listen for the differences between the candidates and vote for the one who understands the challenges we face in South Dakota. Thank you.
All right, thanks to all three of you. It is now time for the question and answer portion of tonight's debate. Names were drawn to determine the order. The first round will go as follows. Mike Myers will go first, then Representative Susan Wismer, followed by Governor Daugaard. We will then rotate that order for each new question. Michael, here is your question first. It's about education. South Dakota ranks in the bottom for teacher pay and is dwarfed by all neighboring states. Could you concisely answer how you plan to improve South Dakota's education system for teachers? And this comes from Travis in Rapid City.
It comes down to parent-teacher control. My daughter Ann worked as a teacher associate up in Centerville. Drove the bus, monitored the halls, broke up fights in the playground, did it all. And the mandates that come down from Common Core and so on dictate a different kind of and costly way to teach. We need better funding, we need to attract teachers, and we ought to be just a little bit ashamed of ourselves being down there where we are on paying some of the most important people that will affect the lives of our children and tomorrow's generation.
All right, thank you very much. Representative.
You're watching a production of South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Welcome to Election 2014, brought to you by South Dakota Public Broadcasting, AARP South Dakota, and the South Dakota Newspaper Association. We have teamed up to bring you South Dakota's gubernatorial debate. I'm Stephanie Rissler, tonight's moderator. Here are the rules and the instructions. Each candidate will have a 1-minute opening statement. Each candidate will have the opportunity for a 1-minute closing statement at the end of the debate. The questions have been solicited from the Friends of South Dakota Public Broadcasting, members of AARP South Dakota, and members of the South Dakota Newspaper Association. I will ask the questions on behalf of all three partners. We do ask that each candidate limit their answers to 90 seconds or less. Each candidate will have 30 seconds for a rebuttal should they feel they need it, and each candidate will have equal opportunity to respond to all questions.
Be honored to serve as your governor again.
All right, thank you very much. Michael, you two have 1 minute to speak to our voters. Go ahead, sir.
I'm Mike Myers, independent candidate for governor. And when I go into office, I'm going to be the oldest governor in the United States. But I'm not for sale. And I put together my wife and family. My wife passed away 7 years ago. I got a background, former CEO of Mayo St. Mary's Hospital, 1,000 beds, taught for 26 years, and I believe it's time. It's time to push back and modify a power structure in Pierre that's been there too long. Everybody needs a platform. I've got 5 planks, real quick. Plank 1, not for sale. I'm not a career politician, and I'll be fighting state corruption. Plank 2, education, parent-teacher control and funding. Plank 3, health insurance cooperative, male standards. Plank 4, jobs, a living wage, agriculture, industrial hemp. And finally, plank 5, I'm aligned with the Cowboy Indian Alliance regarding the Keystone Pipeline and the